Good evening, everyone. I'm Vishal Salsekar, and I would like to wish you a very happy and prosperous Diwali. Right? So, today's News Today discussion, we are going to cover the News Today articles for 18th of October. Right? In this particular edition, the first important news that we are going to cover is regarding the Global Antibiotic Resistance Surveillance Report 2025. We'll see regarding the phenomena of even the antibiotic resistance and why it is harmful for specifically the country like India. The next article is regarding the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index of 2025. Whenever UPSC asks the question about generally these particular type of report, they are focusing upon that which particular agencies are the releasing agency. But the important reports like this, which is multi-dimensional poverty index, since it is highlighting a lot of areas with respect to disparity, so we have to have a detailed idea about this because we can expect even the means related questions from this kind of topics. Next is the Supreme Court forms a committee for a transgender person. So a committee has been formed by the Supreme Court that will be led by a High Court judge, right? And in that particular committee, it will be recommending that in 2019, there was a legislation regarding the transgender person. What will be the changes that are needed in order to make that further inclusive? The next is regarding the India's gold reserve crossed $100 billion. So today, again, an auspicious day to discuss about the gold, but yes, it is a feat. As well as we will also see that are there any kind of challenges with respect to this particular gold reserve, right? Last in this, we will discuss regarding the Codex Committee on the spices and the culinary herbs, right? So we will discuss these 5 articles in detail, and then we are going to see regarding the places in news where we are going to cover Venezuela because of the important context, and then we are going to discuss certain other quick updates. So let's start the discussion with the very first article regarding the World Health Organization WHO, which has released the Global Antibiotic Resistance Surveillance Report of 2025. Now, whenever these particular reports are there in news, this gives us an opportunity in order to highlight certain important data examples, because whenever these reports are being there in the news, or specifically when we are covering these particular reports, in those reports there will be certain data. Let's say this report is about the global antibiotic resistance. In general, if we talk about the antimicrobial resistance, so in that case, if there is any question regarding the antimicrobial or the antibiotic resistance, first obviously the conceptual things you might be doing, but then specifically substantiating your argument regarding the data of that particular issue, specifically the global data as well as the Indian data. That data can be taken from these reports because these are the most authentic sources as far as the data is concerned. Now, from the UPSC's examination general studies paper 2, where you are going to read regarding the health and education related things along with the human resources, and GS paper 3, where science, technology along with the environment and biosecurity, these are certain important things because the disease and the development for those particular disease in the form of certain medications, right? So that will come also in the science and tech, environment and biosecurity. So let's start the discussion of this article. Now, what are the key findings of this report? But before going into the key findings, let's briefly talk about like what is the antimicrobial or what is the antibiotic resistance. So generally when you are going to take the antibiotic, whenever you are getting infected with any specific bacterial infection, you are going to take the antibiotic. But what happens generally that if you are self-prescribing that particular antibiotic, then in that case, maybe for that time, there might be relief that you will get. But there may be certain bacterial strains that might be remaining even after that. And those will develop the resistance towards the dosage of the antibiotic that you have taken. And next time when you are again administering yourself with that particular dosage, now since those bacteria which remained and they multiplied, now they are resistant to the specific drug that you have taken or the antibiotic you have taken. So next time maybe a chance, or maybe after 3 or 4 iteration, there will be development of certain antibiotic resistance. Now when we are talking about, let's say, virus, when we are talking about different other kind of microbes, so this particular term in larger manner is known as the antimicrobial resistance. तो जो antimicrobial drugs or antibiotics which were developed in order to make sure that you get cure from that particular bacteria or microbe or virus, now these are not working anymore on that particular strains, and certain specific strains got resistance to that particular antibiotic, and those antibiotic are not working anymore. That's what is the antibiotic resistance. So what are being highlighted in this particular report? The report highlights that roughly there have been the global extensive resistance with respect to the antimicrobes or the antibiotics. Now what is this? This particular data is being highlighted that in 2023 when they surveyed, roughly 1 out of 6 bacterial infection is the antimicrobial resistance. So this is the data regarding the antimicrobial resistance. This shows that roughly you can say 1 out of every 6 infection is because of the antimicrobial or the antibiotic resistance. That highlights that there is a need to address this particular issue very early, because problem is that whenever the antibiotics or the antimicrobial drugs are available at cheaper cost or available readily, in that cases they are also bound to get exploited, right? And in that cases there may be further increase in this particular data. Next is regarding the regional hotspot. So see, obviously those countries which are having either certain issues like poverty or may not be having the proper health and wellness centers or maybe the health related infrastructure, those are going to be the major hotspot. Why? Because dekho, if you are not going to see the doctor and if you are self-prescribing that particular antibiotic or antimicrobial, in that cases the chances are very high that even at the very beginning wala stage you are going to administer yourself with the large amount of dosage of certain antibiotics, which might be okay, that point of time pe it might be working, but later point of time pe your body might be resistant to that particular antibiotic, right? So the hotspot is obviously the Southeast Asia and the South Asia. This is the particular region. Then the Eastern Mediterranean region, these are the regions which are comparatively developing countries. And even apart from that, followed by the countries like Africa. अब देखो, पहले एंटीबायोटिक रेजिस्टेंस के लिए यू शुड बी हैविंग सर्टेन अमाउंट ऑफ एंटीबायोटिक जो आप लोगे, एंड देन देयर विल बी सर्टेन रेजिस्टेंस दैट विल बी डेवलपिंग, राइट? सो रीजनल हॉटस्पॉट इंक्लूड्स दोज कंट्रीज जहां पर देयर इज अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ द एंटीबायोटिक्स, बट देन दोज एंटीबायोटिक्स आर बीइंग एक्सप्लॉइटेड और मिस यूटिलाइज्ड. देयर इज ओवर द काउंटर सेल, मतलब विदाउट इवन प्रिस्क्रिप्शन you are able to get that particular antibiotics. Next is regarding the impact on the vulnerable setting. So see, again, who are the vulnerable countries? As I have talked about, that low and the middle income countries are the most impacted country because of this particular type of resistance. So these are the most impacted section. And apart from that, country with weak health system. Agar dekho, if there is strong health system, in that particular cases, there will be proper administration of the medication and you will not be able to get the over the counter sold those particular antibiotics. But right now, if you are able to get, that means to some extent the health system is weak. Last in this is specifically when we talk about India, roughly 41% of the bloodstream infection, matlab bacteria or microbes that are getting multiplied within the bloodstreams, and this particular kind of infection specifically are coming from China, India and Pakistan. These are the countries which are contributing roughly 41%. Or dekho, why this is happening? Because initially you are getting yourself administered with certain antibiotic, but some bacteria are remaining, and now when they are getting multiplied, there will be resistance that will be developing in your bloodstream, right? So these are the things: global extensive resistance, which is talking about ki what is the extent, then the regional hotspot, impact on the vulnerable setting, and also the India related finding. Now you can take this particular data with respect to the health in the social justice, with respect to that there is a topic of the antimicrobial or the antibiotic resistance. There write this data, global data and the Indian data, which will be highlighting ki bhai, if at any point of time there is any question, you will be able to substantiate your argument. Now what is the antimicrobial resistance? We have already discussed that bacteria, virus, fungi that develop the ability to defeat the drug. Matlab, drug was created in order to defeat them, but certain strains were remaining. Those got administered with certain antibiotics, but now they got habitual to that, and in that case they have the ability now to defeat at least the low level antibiotics. Now how that particular thing is happening, they are getting evolved. Initially they are getting administered, or they might have affected a bit, but later on when they will multiply, when there will be further development of the bacteria of that particular strain, obviously they will also evolve and resist to the effect of the antibiotic, and this is a continuous process that will be going on. Now, in that there are certain antimicrobials, or basically the microbes that will become the superbugs. So they are utilized. There is a term that is being utilized for this, is the AMR superbugs, or the antimicrobial resistance related superbugs. Now, what are these particular superbugs? Certain bacterial, certain microbe strain, those got basically habitual to that particular type of the antibiotics, and now they are not anymore getting killed by that, but they are also enjoying the administration of that particular type of antibiotics. So they are the AMR superbugs, and the countries where the exploitation of these particular antibiotics or the antimicrobial is comparatively high, the chances of the development of AMR superbugs is also very high. So the country like India, where there have been a lot of prevalence of the antibiotic or the antimicrobial resistance, the AMR superbugs ka incidence is also very high. Now, over 1 million death annually is there with respect to the antimicrobial resistance. This is the direct death, and 5 million के around death जो होती हैं, that this antimicrobial resistance is contributing indirectly also. Means it is complicating certain existing diseases, and actually in that manner there will be further death related issues. Now, when we talk about the challenges with respect to the antimicrobial resistance in India, what are these challenges? First is the overconsumption. How that overconsumption is there? There is the over-the-counter sell. Over-the-counter sell means you do not have any prescription from the doctor who is prescribing you these antibiotics, but then what you are going? You are going there in the medical shop, you are asking for antibiotics, and that person is also giving you. So in that particular case, there is the over-the-counter sell of these particular medicines, which are later on creating the antimicrobial or the antibiotic resistance. Hygiene and the healthcare related issues. So if there is issue with respect to the sanitation, if there is issue with respect to different kind of issues because of the flitty conditions, development of the bacteria like E. coli and all will also increase, and that will going to cause some issues like the antimicrobial resistance. Also, if there is poor healthcare condition in any specific region, there will be lack of availability of doctor. So the person will be self-prescribing themselves the antimicrobials or the antibiotics, and in that particular cases, again, sometimes they are not completing their dosage, and sometimes there will be issue or the lags with respect to what was the required amount and what you have taken. तो आपको हो सकता है कि सेकेंड ऑर्डर की दवाई नहीं लेनी थी, you had to taken the first वाला, but eventually you have administered yourself to the second level, जो higher dosage होता है, right? In that case, now you are even resistant to that particular higher dosage. Third is the agriculture. In the agriculture, even in the livestock related farming, sometimes even to the maybe different species, the people are administering with the antibiotics, and when these particular antibiotics basically when you are feeding upon that, or maybe certain other carnivores are getting fed upon that, in that particular cases, this particular antibiotic or the antimicrobial resistance is now getting spread across the food chain. Lastly is the socio-economic inequalities and the climate change. Socio-economic inequalities is basically the poverty and the associated aspect. This is further aggravating this issue. And when we talk about the climate change, there are certain climatic conditions. For example, hot and humid type of climate, which is further facilitating the growth of the bacteria and all, and that is further helping with respect to this. And even apart from that, when there are flood, when there are different other kind of disaster situation, the incidence of these particular issues can also further increase, right? Now, what are the steps that are taken? So, in this particular context, we are talking about the global as well as the Indian steps. So, WHO's global antimicrobial resistance and use surveillance system. This is basically to get the data regarding the antimicrobial resistance, get the authentic data. Even apart from that, there is the aspect of surveillance with respect to that. So in that cases, what you are going to do, you are going to ensure that there is a data available, there is availability of the trend, then there is a better surveillance available in order to track the antimicrobial resistance. It was initiated by WHO roughly in 2015, and this is also being known by the acronym of CLASS. Right. Next is the National Action Plan on the Antimicrobial Resistance initiated in 2017. So this was under the ambit of the One Health policy, which talks about even identification of the antimicrobial resistance related factors and then working upon that in order to prevent the issues of the antimicrobial resistance. Next is Operation Amrit. So antimicrobial resistance intervention for the total health. This is the government of Kerala's mission in order to prevent the sale of the over the counter medicines जो होती हैं, over the counter medicines का जो sale होता है, that particular sale has to be reduced, and for that there is Operation Amrit that was launched by Kerala government. Ban on the inappropriate fixed dose combinations. So fixed dose combinations are those medicines or those pills specifically जहाँ पर दो या दो से ज़्यादा, 2 or more than 2 dosage are included. So within one pill only there are 2 or more than 2 dosage are there, and sometimes the chances are कि आपको एक तरीके का लेना था but other is creating issue in your body, and many a time it has been observed that this FDCs are responsible for the antimicrobial or antibiotic resistance. That's why all these things have been taken into consideration. So this is giving you the comprehensive idea regarding if there is any question talking about the antimicrobial or antibiotic resistance, you will be in a position to answer that question. Now the PYQ कैसे UPSC पूछता है? Which of the following are the reasons for the occurrence of the multi-drug resistance in the microbial pathogens in India? 2019. Genetic predisposition of some people, taking incorrect dosage, using antibiotics, multiple chronic diseases in some people. You have to answer this particular question, right? Next article is regarding the multidimensional poverty index. So global multidimensional poverty index 2025 का report release किया. Again another report, there will be data, so you can take certain data, because again if you see the syllabus of GS paper 2, GS paper 3, so whether there is social justice and whether there is specific topic of poverty, there can be inclusion of the data that you will get from here. So that data can be exactly replicated in the answer. ज़रूरी नहीं है कि every time there will be specific question about that. Even without having any specific question, you can write about that particular thing, substantiating that with data. Now see. The syllabus again, GS paper 2, governance, social justice, welfare scheme, and GS paper 3, economy, there you can utilize. Now in this particular report, the agencies which are also involved in this, UNDP is there, and the Oxford Poverty and the Human Development Initiative. These are the agencies which are releasing this global multidimensional poverty index, right? Now what are the key highlights of this report? Let's first discuss about that, and then we will talk about this specific index. So the highlights includes, first is like it talks about the global head count, matlab it gives the data regarding who are basically multidimensionally poor. We will see the parameters based upon which you are going to decide that who are multidimensionally poor, but this is giving you a data that if there can be any data that you can quote regarding the multidimensional poor. So in that case 1.1 billion of population in across the planet that is living in the acute multidimensional poverty, which is roughly 18.3% of the population surveyed. So in that case, what it is showing, that it is giving an idea regarding the global headcount, that this much number of people are under multidimensional poverty. Now multidimensional poverty, if I tell you कि भाई ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ income you are considering health, you are considering education, you are considering the basic sustainable things that you are getting, for example cooking fuel, for example electricity, for example sanitation, for example other things. So this will comprehensively include that it is not only the income parameter, but this is the holistic parameter based upon which we are assessing the poverty, right? Now 43.6% people faces the severe poverty in half of or more MPI indicator. So when we are talking about health, uske bhi alag sub indicators hain. For education also there are sub indicators, and for also well-being and others there are other sub indicators. So it talks about that people who are facing the severe poverty in a half or more MPIs. This number is 43.6. See, prelims mein chances are very rare that this kind of data exactly will be asked, but in the mains you can utilize this type of data for the value addition. Now, when the incidence of the multidimensional poverty will be there Can you guess like which particular region might be having more incidence of the multidimensional poverty? Yes, basically the region of the sub-Saharan Africa, because of the per capita income, because of the developmental status, right? So 83.2% population which is multidimensionally poor, either they are living the sub-Saharan Africa mein 565 million and the South Asia 390 million. Now you can see that these are the major hotspot where the poverty, lack of development and these particular issues are there. ऐसा नहीं और भी areas है, but these are the major areas जो कि एक regional identity के form में we can identify. When we talk about the multidimensional poverty in India, specifically India has taken multiple steps and gradually every year basis pe whenever the assessment is there, India ka position is comparatively getting strengthened, right? So the multidimensional poverty has fallen to 16.4%. It was roughly 55% in 2005-2006 and that has reduced to 16% now. So that's a major achievement, right? Right now 414 million people that came out of the poverty. Now how those people came out of poverty? Multiple places pe there were interventions in health, there were interventions in education, there were interventions like for housing, for sanitation, for cooking fuel, all these things, electricity, in all places pe government has provided the tremendous work in this regard. The common deprivations, right? So this is highlighting the common deprivation. For example, clean cooking fuel, this is one such common deprivation. Housing, sanitation. So for any developing countries, and specifically that country is comparatively at a lower stage of development, these will be the major issues that that country will be facing, even including electricity, even initially there will be health related issues, right? Next is double burden of poverty and the climate change. Now already there are issues regarding poverty, but what further is happening that this poverty is further multiplied by the issues like climate hazard. So for example, let's say there is population which is having the impact of poverty already and suddenly there is flood, there is earthquake. So that is further aggravating that particular issue, right? So over 80% of the population living in the climate hazard prone region. मतलब जो poor population है, which is also multidimensionally poor, that is living in these particular region. Lastly, the small island and developing states. So see, climate change is reality. Many people are saying कि भाई adequate data नहीं है, but ठीक है, that is a reality and we have to face this particular reality, and the most impacted countries are those countries which are lying at comparatively sea level के बहुत near. So in that particular cases, which are those countries? The small island nations. Now they do not have any other avenues available. So in that cases, they are the most vulnerable population, and it is observed that there are 22 small island developing states that have the poverty related things very high compared to even the developing world. So when it compared with the developing world, it was observed कि developing world में it is roughly 18% के around poverty average basis पे, small island and the developing states में it is 23%. That shows that even the impact of climate change is going to aggravate the poverty, right? Now when we talked about this, what is now the global multidimensional poverty index? As we have talked about that there are certain parameters including the health, education and also the basic standards of living. So which are the releasing agency? It is the UNDP, which is the United Nations Development Program, along with the Oxford Poverty and the Human Development Initiative, started since 2010. So generally UPSC in prelims can focus upon this. This can be a prominent prelims related fact. Now this is including 3 dimensions, but the total number of indicator includes 10 indicator. Matlab each dimensions have multiple indicator. For example, the first dimension is the health. Now in the context of health, there are 2 pointers. Let's say these 3 specific dimensions are there. 1/3 of weightage to this, 1/3 of weightage to this, and 1/3 of weightage to living standards. Now in 1/3 also it is divided into 2. Nutrition means under 70 years of age, how many of the people are not having proper nutrition or facing the malnutrition. This is going to give data regarding that. Then child mortality within the 18 years age, which is considered as a child. In 18 years ke age mein, when the survey is being done, how many child which is under 18 year have been died in last 5 years. So when this particular survey is being done, ye identify kiya jayega, and based upon this, this weightage will be assigned regarding the child mortality. Matlab within the 5 years before the survey, how many child have died. When we talk about education, so in that case 1/6 to nutrition, 1/6 to child mortality. Education में years of schooling, so it is identifying that total जितना years of schooling हो सकता है in that particular cases, how many of the people are not even having 6 years of schooling. So this is the specific data regarding the years of schooling, again 1/6. And school attendance, basically it is about those people कि भाई roughly till class 8, roughly you can assume that 12-13 साल, और फिर idea regarding the class 8 that generally in that particular age when the student completes class 8, in that sense में how many students are not even able to get into the education or attend the education through schools. So this particular data is regarding that. So again 1/6. इसके अलावा third parameter is the living standards. Living standards में there is access to clean energy, sanitation, drinking water, electricity, housing, and these particular things are there. So 118, there are 6 parameters. 180, 1/18 is for each parameters in this. And based upon this, the weighted average will be identified. And जिस particular person के context में it is coming like less than 1/3, मतलब 33% से less आता है, in that case that is a multidimensionally poor person, right? So this is regarding the indicators: nutrition, child mortality in health, years of schooling and the school attendance in education, then cooking fuel, sanitation, drinking water, electricity, housing and the assets and the respective weightage, right? इसके basis पर भी they can frame the prelims based question. Next article is regarding the Supreme Court forms the committee to formulate a national equal opportunity policy for the transgender person. Now see, the transgender person related question can be even asked from the GS paper 1 society, even asked from the social justice perspective, and even from the economy perspective there can be a question regarding that. Also when we were last article mein we were talking about the multidimensional poverty, but one such factor is also regarding exclusion, and when these particular sections of the society are getting excluded from getting the benefit, in that cases these also becomes the major reasons why there are issues regarding the, not exactly in that particular parameter we have discussed, but in general regarding poverty or the artificially created poverty, we can take the example. So these are the sections which are related with this topic, includes the GS paper 2, governance, constitution, social justice, GS paper 1, society, salient feature of society, right? Now, when we talk about the transgender people, in that cases there were multiple case laws that were there in the judiciary. So there was a case famously known as the Nalsa versus Union of India case of 2014, जहाँ पर the court, Supreme Court has recognized regarding the transgender population, and later on 2019 में there was the act that was created, which is the Transgender Persons Act of 2019. Now Supreme Court recently have identified, and that's why they asked to create a panel, because they have identified कि भाई this particular act which is regarding the Transgender Persons Act of 2019, and also discrimination that is being done regarding or towards the transgender people, whether it is in education, whether it is in health, whether it is in accessing any other government benefit, that is there, and that's why there is a need to review this particular thing. Now which case Supreme Court was referring? Jain Kaushik versus Union of India case, जहाँ पर Supreme Court का ये observation आया. Now when obviously there is some context, we have to discuss regarding what are the broader issues that this transgender population is facing basically. Now one of the prominent issue is regarding the accessibility of the benefits. So see, generally when the government is providing any specific welfare section, welfare policy for any specific section, in that cases if there is lack of accessibility, for example if you are providing, let's say, free health, but you are not allowing certain sections to enter into those particular health institutions, is that policy inclusive? The answer is no. So in that cases, when the accessibility of the benefit is there, now it is being asked as per the Transgender Persons Act of 2019 कि भाई you have to get a identity certificate. You can self certify, मतलब आप self claim कर सकते हो कि you are a transgender person. Means who is a transgender person? A transgender person is basically who identifies himself against the sex allotted at the time of birth. So if you are born as a male and identify as a female, so obviously it will come in the category of transgender. But on and above that, there is another conditionality that is mentioned in this particular Transgender Persons Act कि भाई आपको एक identity जो proof रहेगा, that certification will be available only after signing of the district magistrate. तो district magistrate को sign करना है in order to certify that yes, you are a transgender person. In that particular case, it leads to a lot of complexities and the issue, and that becomes getting or attaining even that certificate is a issuesome task, and that is what is highlighted. So availing those benefits, there will be a need for the identification card. Now getting that identification card itself is sometimes humiliating for the transgender section of society, so that is hindering the accessibility of the benefit which is provided for them. Next is the lack of reasonable accommodation. Now see, accommodation here includes broader term, even in educational institution, even in health education, even in certain places, for example Swadargrah or any other type of places jahan par they could have got the accommodation that would have benefited them, but now right now because of the stigma that is attached, they are not getting, so they are facing challenges in accessing the public institution. Next is regarding administrative inefficiency. Dekho, there have been certain things like there, as per this particular act, there were transgender protection cells that were mandated, but many such states have not even created this, and many a time even the government institutions are discriminating against these particular people. So in that cases, it's like कि भाई जो administrative structure तैयार किया गया, that administrative structure itself creates discrimination. Next is the deep-rooted social stigma. Now, even after that, once you have law, but those who are going to implement this law aren't those people. So, if law is there, if those who are applying that particular law, those who are practicing that law, if those are not being governed by the good spirit in that particular case, there is no benefit of this, right? So, there is a deep-rooted social stigma that is attached to these people, and this is basically shaping the people's attitude towards the transgender section of society, and that's why many a time these people are not coming out openly in order to access their own rights, specifically as far as the education, health and the associated aspects of employment are concerned. Last is the legal and the identity issue, as I have already talked कि भाई देखो, in order to get the benefits they have to get the identity first. So certification of gender identity will be provided by district magistrate, so that itself is a discriminating practice or a practice which is considered by the transgender sections of society as the practice which is humiliating for them, right? Now, having discussed about the issues faced, let's talk about the key provisions of this act which is being right now in focus and where the committee has been recommended by the Supreme Court, which will be led by the High Court judge, right? So the provisions of the Transgender Person Protection of Rights Act of 2019. What it does, first it defines the transgender person. Who is transgender person? A person whose gender identity does not align with the gender assigned at birth. So what I have said, that's the exactly same thing. So that gender identity is not aligning with the gender assigned at the birth, right? Now who is certifying? Basically the self-perceived gender identity आप अपने आप से assume कर सकते हो, but then in order to get that particular identity card, there is a certificate of identity issued by the district magistrate. Now, this becomes the bone of contention. Next is prohibition against discrimination. So this talks about that whether it is accessing health, whether it is education, whether it is employment, whether it is any public infrastructure, there should not be any discrimination against the transgender sections of society. Even in certain places pe there is some process of reservation that will be applied also. So they were also categorized as the socially and educationally backward classes. Measures by government, so they formulated welfare scheme to ensure the full participation. That's what I was talking about, whether it is the measures in order to promote them in the welfare scheme or providing them support with respect to education, health and all. Lastly, there have been establishment of the National Council for the Transgender Person in order to provide support to them. जैसे कि National Council होती है, for example, for women, for the SCs, STs, for the backward classes, for the minorities, like this, there is the National Council for the transgender person in order to uphold their rights. And if there is any act which is hampering that particular this transgender persons ka right. So in that case, they will be checking that particular act and also will get the grievance redressal done. Now, having talked about this particular initiatives or the measures that were taken by government regarding the welfare of the transgender persons, there are certain important case laws also. So one such thing is regarding the Nalsa judgment of 2014, which was there. Apart from that, there are certain other prominent judgments. For example, in 2013, there was judgment regarding the NAS Foundation. Then later on in the Suresh Kumar Kaushal case, it was overturned, right? So that is also there. Apart from that, there is also a case of Navtej Johar versus Union of India. So these are certain prominent cases, not exactly dealing with the transgender person per se, but it is talking about certain important aspects of that. For example, the decriminalization of 377 section of IPC, now that is being replaced by the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, right? So just go through once these particular important case laws and have an idea regarding what particular things they are dealing with, right? Next article is regarding the India's gold reserve, so which has crossed now $100 billion. So it is for the first time this has happened. So now from obviously economy perspective, it is important because the forex reserve, and apart from that, the economic stability is depending upon how much forex we are having, so that if there is any point of time there will be any global turmoil, this forex reserve is going to be a cushion for India in order to provide stability with respect to that particular time period. So GS3 mein important hai. Now, why RBI is increasing its gold reserve? So as per the data, it is suggested that RBI ka jo latest foreign exchange data hai, that shows that roughly this $102 billion is the gold reserve that RBI is having. Now this is roughly 15% of the reserve, which was 7% around a decade ago. That means with respect to gold, there have been a jump of 2 times, which was there a decade ago. So that was a major thing. Now see, whether it is good or bad, we have to see it from all the perspective. Now, why RBI is doing this? The first important thing is regarding the diversification. See, in the different type of the reserves, there is the foreign currency reserve that RBI is maintaining. There are prominent currencies which are being kept under this. Apart from that, even the IMF related, the reverse tranche position, as well as the SDR, that is also being maintained by RBI. Even apart from that, there is gold. So there is a diversified portfolio. But right now, the issues that are going on already between the India and US, and also the aspect regarding the de-dollarization and promoting more and more local currencies in trade, there have been a need for diversification so that we will not be over relying on any specific one country currency, and that currency के through वो country manipulate कर सकती है India's के interest को, right? So in that case, there is a need for diversification. That's why we are also increasing or focusing upon increasing the gold reserve. Next is regarding risk mitigation. So this is like putting the eggs not in the same basket, but in the different baskets, so that the risk will be spread across all the baskets. So to protect against any currency volatility, for example, there is even dollar, there is also pound, there is also euro. Suppose करो tomorrow dollar price crash. So in that case हो सकता है अगर entire forex reserve India का सिर्फ dollar पे base था, so in that cases there will be issue. So there is already gold, also SDR, so that will balance. So it is like the risk mitigation strategy. Next is hedge against the inflation. So tomorrow suppose karo if there is large inflation. Now in the case of inflation, the money ka value gets decreased. When the money's value get decreased, in that case this gold is going to maintain the purchasing power. That gold ka value though across the world will be there, right? So in that particular cases, it will be the cushion for that point of time when the inflation will be high. Lastly is the safe haven asset. So generally see, it is also the conventional mindset that the gold is there for the bad times, right? So buffer will be there in order to mitigate any specific financial crisis. So this is there regarding the why RBI is increasing. Now, what are the issues? Obviously, ऐसा नहीं है कि there is no issue. There are certain issues by increasing too much gold in the forex reserve. One such issue is the reducing of liquidity. Now see, gold ऐसा तो नहीं है कि you will transact like gold to gold, obviously you will be converting that into money. So that conversion wala thing takes money also, takes the cut also in between. So that particular thing is costly and also a slow process. ऐसा नहीं है ना कि अभी चाहिए आप, you can do it like that only. So there will be, if even if it will be there at that moment, it will take money in order to exchange that. So that will be the issue. So conversion is slow and the costly. Next is zero yield. So suppose karo, if you are having any other currency, country ka currency, in that particular reserve there is the interest that is available. So jahan par bhi rakha hai, there will be interest accumulated. On the gold there is no interest, there is only appreciation. हो सकता है tomorrow there is price that is going to get declined, so there will be issue in that regard. So there is no interest on that. That's why too much of that particular asset is also not recommended. Also the storage and the security cost. Now it's not like it will be available in the digital form. Some physical form you will need, right? So in that case there is a storage and the security cost, and the money need to spend on the storage and security, right? Now, what are the components of the foreign exchange reserve? So foreign exchange reserve ke component, as I've already talked about, foreign currency assets. So these are the foreign currencies which are predominant currencies, right? For example, there is dollar, euro, pound sterling, Australian dollar is there, Japanese yen is there, right? Also right now the currency of the country China, which is getting prominence, right? So these particular things are generally part of that particular foreign exchange reserve. Then there is gold, which is held with RBI. Now when we talk about India, these are the things. So gold is there, then holding with IMF. Now holding with IMF is of two type. One is SDR, which is the special drawing rights. So based upon the quota of any specific country, they can get the SDR. Now this SDR is not exactly currency, it is the asset, but it is backed by the prominent currencies. Which are those currencies? There is US dollar, there is euro, there is Japanese yen, there is yuan, and there is pound sterling. These are the 5 currencies. Last is the reserve tranche position. So this is basically the country ka contribution towards IMF. Now generally that is available at very unconditional terms if the country is facing any balance of payment crisis. So this is also forming the part of the currencies or countries forex reserve or the foreign exchange reserve, right? Now see, like this UPSC had asked the question previously, which of the following have occurred in India after the liberalization of economic policies in 1991? Share of agriculture GDP increased enormously. Now you can assume that this is relation with the LPG reforms. So try to solve this particular question also. Next and the last in the major articles with which we had to discuss is regarding the 3 Codex standards finalized at the 8th session of the Codex Committee on the Spices and the Culinary Herbs, right? Now, when we are talking about this, obviously GS paper 3, where even the topic of agriculture, even the topic of food processing, even the topic jahan par spices and all will also be part of it. Apart from that, there is also the issue related to the food, agriculture, marketing, value addition. This is there. And also GS paper 2, because there is a prominent organization which is the Codex Alimentarius, which is part of this particular article. That's why even in the international institutions, you can assume the importance. And specifically from the prelims perspective, this article is very, very important. Now, what is the Codex standard? Now see, in simple terms, assume this as the food standard. So generally hota kya hai? There is some organization in order to certify that whatever product you are consuming, that product is authenticated, that product is free from any specific impurity. So एक organization होता है ना which is certifying that standard. So this Codex standard is similar to that. So by the Codex Alimentarius, which is an international organization, these standards are identified. So these are the international food text which is highlighting, which is giving an idea regarding these are the criterias, these are the authenticity certificate of these food products. So they are identifying standards, codes of the hygienic practice and the guidelines, right? So with respect to what? With respect to the food. So they are defining the food standards. Now objective kya hai? First, in order to protect the health of the consumer, so that whatever you are consuming, whether that particular thing is authentic, whether that particular thing is free from any specific kind of adulteration, right? Next is ensuring the free practices. Suppose karo, I'm giving you one example. Let's say a badi ilaichi, right? So this has got the culinary herbs wala jo wo hai, wahan se certification bhi mila hai. So in that particular case, let's say the badi ilaichi in that particular case में suppose करो if it is available at 2 places, at one place it is of no value, मतलब कोई ऐसा prominent authentication नहीं है, even there may be the chances that that particular thing might be fake. Other is certified by the Codex because that is fulfilling all the criterias. So in the international trade also there will be facilitation of those which are at par the standards, right? Now adopted by what? This particular certification standards are adopted by the Codex Alimentarius Commission, CAC, which is an international organization formed by FAO and WHO. Right. Now, recently what had happened, there have been the finalization of the standards for vanilla, large cardamom, which is badi ilaichi, and then coriander. Right. By what? By the Codex Committee on the Spices and the Culinary Herbs. Right. So that's why we are discussing this particular article. Now, what is this committee? Codex Committee on the Spices and the Culinary Herbs. So as the name suggests, it is dealing with the spices and the culinary herbs, and it is identifying the standards of that particular products. Now, since India, which one of the main reason for India getting colonized are the spices, right? Because the European powers came to India in order to search for the spices, even in the countries like Southeast Asian countries, right? So that's why India recommended, in order to get the standards for these spices and the culinary herbs, that's why on the request of India, it was established in 2013. Now I'm talking about the Committee on the Spices and Culinary Herbs. I'm not talking about the Codex Alimentarius Committee. That was formed way earlier, right? So under this Codex Alimentarius Commission, this particular Codex Committee on the Spices and the Culinary Herbs was created. Now, where is the secretariat? It is in the India's Spice Board, which is situated in Kerala, Kochi, and the concerned ministry is the Ministry of the Industry and Commerce. Okay? So these are the details regarding the Codex Committee on the Spices and the Culinary Herbs. Now, when we are talking about the Codex Committee on the Spices and Culinary Herbs, so this is part of the Codex Alimentarius Commission. So this is the major international organization which has the headquarters in Rome. Now, again, why this particular organization is there? In order to set the food standard for certain products, right? So international food standard body hai. For example, in India, there is FSSAI, which is certifying, which is giving the standard for food. So international level per, it is the Codex Alimentarius Commission. It is jointly established by FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, and the WHO, World Health Organization, in 1963. Objective kya hai? Obviously, the objective is in order to set the standard for food and also ensure ki bhai health protected rahe by preventing any kind of adulteration and also ensuring the fair practices in the international trade of those food products. Countries mein 189 countries, what we should be remembering is whether India is member. Yes, India is a member of this organization. Can only a country can be member or organization also? There is European Union, that means organization can also become the member. Now the commission meets once in a year. This is the mandate, and alternating between Geneva and the Rome. Rome mein headquarter and Geneva is also second sitting available. Now see, one important thing is that it is not replacing your national standards. For example, let's say in the case of India, if it is FSSAI, तो ऐसा नहीं है कि Codex जो Alimentarius Commission के जो recommendation रहेंगे that will supersede the FSSAI. No, but it will give you the broader guidelines so the country can make their own law specifically based upon those guidelines. So these are not binding. There may be a prelim statement saying that these are binding. No, it is not binding, right? But suppose if there is international trade going on as par at par the WTO का जो agreements होता है, there is sanitary and the phytosanitary measures, and in that particular case, suppose if any country wants, and if that particular product is not as per the standard set by this Codex Alimentarius Commission, so in that case the country can deny that product. So matlab that can be a basis for the sanitary and the phytosanitary measures. Now talking about the vanilla, which has also got the certification in this, so it is part of the orchid family and it is native of the Atlantic coast, which is available from the Mexico to Brazil, right? Now major producing countries kaun se hai? Madagascar, Indonesia and Mexico. When we talk about India, it is Kerala, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. But India is comparatively a net importer. What is the utilization of this vanilla? For the fragrance also, and to utilize it for certain kind of other, like other artificial, matlab add करने के लिए चीज़ों में that vanilla is being utilized. Now, conditions क्या है? First, altitude, it is up to 1000 meter. This is the altitude suitable. Then climate, warm and the humid tropical climate is needed. That means warm like roughly 20 to 25 degree. सेल्सियस के अराउंड टेम्परेचर एंड ह्यूमिडिटी भी अच्छी खासी, रफली 80% ह्यूमिडिटी अराउंड इज नीडेड. रेनफॉल वेल डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड रेनफॉल मोर देन रफली 200 centimeter to 250 centimeter is good with the dry period of 2 months. Soil light, porous and also friable soil means it can be converted into granules also. So these are the specific things regarding the vanilla crop, and this is regarding the article on the Codex Standards and the Codex Alimentarius Commission. Now, next is regarding the places in news. So, in today's places in news, we are going to cover the Venezuela. Now, you can see the location of Venezuela. A few days back, we had discussed about the La Orquilla Island. La Orquilla Island is available in this particular region of the Caribbean Sea in the northern part of the Venezuela, one of the island under the occupation of Venezuela, right? So, right now the context is Venezuela has deployed the troops along the Colombian border, which is this particular border, Colombian border, following the US naval strike on the alleged drug-carrying Venezuelan boats, right? So, there is already a tension going on between US and Venezuela. That's why this is important. Now, if you see the geography of Venezuela, on the northern side there is Caribbean Sea, and broadly it is part of the Atlantic Ocean also. So, on the northern side it is the Atlantic Ocean. In the western side it is Colombia. So, western side mein it is Colombia, on the southern side it is Brazil, so it is bordered by Brazil, and in the eastern side it is Guyana, right? So, these are the countries which are surrounding this. Apart from that, there are prominent geographies that is available. For example, there is on this particular region there is Lake Maracaibo. You will see on the map, the detailed map, right? There is the Lake Maracaibo here, and this lake is very important lake from the perspective of oil and natural gas. One of the world's largest oil and natural gas reserve is available in this particular region. Now, talking about the island, La Orquilla Island is there, hot and humid tropical, because you can see that this particular region is the tropical region, and that's why the hot and humid type of climate is available. Now, when we talk about the water bodies, Orinoco River is there, which is emptying in the Atlantic Ocean. There is also Rio Negro River is there, which is a tributary of Amazon, and last is Lake Maracaibo, which we have discussed is this particular water body. Now, highest waterfall is available over here, which is the Angel waterfall, which is on the Churun River, right? And lastly is the world's largest, one of the largest oil and natural gas reserves. But the problem with this region is the issues or the turmoil going on, and right now this is there in news because the Nobel Peace Prize is also had given for this particular region only. That's why you should be having a clear idea about the geography of this region, because this year ke examination ke liye it is more important. Now, having discussed about the important articles, let's see other important news which can be asked in the prelims examination. So, let's see this. First is regarding the We Rise initiative. So, there have been this initiative launched by the Niti Aayog, where the We Rise Women Entrepreneurs Reimagining Inclusive and the Sustainable Enterprises, this initiative was launched, right? So, We Rise initiative was launched. Now, as the name suggests, it is regarding promotion of the entrepreneurship. So, it is launched by Niti Aayog's Women Entrepreneurship Platform under the Award to Reward initiative. Or Niti Aayog ke saath, which is the other body, it is the DP World, which is an organization. Both have launched this We Rise initiative. Now, objective kya hai? To help women entrepreneurs, including the women-led MSME, to scale their business globally, to get the training, to get the entrepreneurship-related things, right? To get the funding support, all these things is going to be provided under this. So, industry, academia linkage, other collaboration will be provided through this. So, this is regarding We Rise initiative. Important information is Niti Aayog along with DP World, obviously to help the women entrepreneurs in getting the entrepreneurship related things and also supporting MSME. Next is regarding the FAO, which is the Food and Agriculture Organization. It is a specialized agency of United Nations. So, recently FAO celebrated 80 years of partnership with India, and that's why this is in the news, right? Headquarter kahan hai? Rome, Italy. Now, established in 1945, so this organization has also completed 80 years of its establishment. It is a specialized agency of United Nations. 195 members hai, along with the European Union. Now, see, there are certain important reports, as in when these report comes, there can be even question regarding which of the following agencies have released this report. That's why this can be in the news. So state of the world forest, that is there, state of the food security and the nutrition in the world, and lastly the state of food and agriculture. These are the reports or the publication that is released by the Food and Agriculture Organization. Next is regarding the IEA report on the sustainable fuel. So the International Energy Agency that has released a report which is delivering the sustainable fuels pathway to 2035. So it talks about the utilization of the sustainable fuel. Now it is talking that the sustainable fuel को use करना है in complementing with the electrification and the reducing dependencies on the fossil fuel. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ और सिर्फ electrification या फिर other things should be done. It is also to utilize the sustainable fuel. What are these particular sustainable fuel? These are like, for example, biofuels, biogases, lower emission hydrogen based fuels, right? So these are the fuels which are alternative fuels available in order to avoid the oil and natural gases, right? So the global use, ऐसा बोला जा रहा है कि global use is going to be fourfold by 2035. So if there is a question regarding the fuel related things, so you can talk about that the global fuel use can increase multifold, and that's why the sustainable fuel is important. Apart from this, reduced global oil demand by around 2.5 million barrels per day. This is also one such data regarding this present stats, that when we are talking about the sustainable fuels, there have been reduction in the global oil demand, which is a good sign, right? Next is identified 6 priority action areas. So there are certain areas which were identified, for example, region specific roadmap banao, increasing the demand predictability, which region is demanding more these particular type of fuels, right? Attracting private investment. So like this, there are certain focus areas or the priority areas that have been identified by this report, right? So the IEA report on the sustainable fuel has been released, International Energy Agency, right? Next is regarding the ORS solution, so the oral rehydration solution. So recently, there have been क्या कल ही there was a judgment that was not judgment, basically FSSAI का एक order आया where a large or the long ongoing battle that was there, where the doctor, she had reported कि भाई there are many such energy drinks जिसे ORS के नाम से बेचा जा रहा है, that are being sold as ORS as the rehydration solution, but many instances पे when the patient came to that particular doctor, it was observed that through taking these particular kind of sweetener related drinks which are not ORS solution based, but still they are being marking their label as the ORS, and that's why they are misleading, and hence FSSAI now clearly gave the directive that you can't use the name of ORS arbitrarily, right? So the FSSAI issued the order under the Food Safety Standards Act of 2006 banning all the beverages using the term ORS in their name do not adhere to the WHO standard. So WHO has provided a standard for ORS for the rehydration solution and that thing is only allowed in the case of ORS. So it is a mixture of the sugar and salt, but there is a specific proportion. So for example, there is utilization based upon the formula of WHO and UNICEF. So there is sodium chloride, there is glucose anhydrous, which is 13.5. See, this is not that important, but just एक idea होना चाहिए. There is glucose anhydrous, then the potassium chloride is there, there is trisodium citrate dihydride is there. So these are the important things which are part of the ORS solution. Just take idea so that you can at least eliminate some statement. It was first developed in 1971 by Dilip Mahalanobis, right? So it was the health related expert from India who has identified this or developed this. Next is rotavirus vaccine. So recently there have been a study where the indigenous rotavirus जो vaccine है Rotavac, that found effectiveness similar to the clinical trial में जो effectiveness थी similar मिली है. That means it is helping people, right? So what kind of vaccine is this? It is a oral, that means taken from mouth rather than getting injected, right? Live attenuated means similar rotavirus, which is the issue or the virus related disease, उसी का live attenuated version, a minor form or the weak form of that virus that is being used. Monovalent means for a single strain. It's not like all the type of rotavirus it can tackle. The most prevalent strain that have been taken, the monovalent, liquid vaccine. It is in the liquid form that is there. So this is the type of vaccine developed by public-private partnership between Department of Biotechnology, Bharat Biotech, US-based National Institute of Health. These are the agencies which are responsible for development. Now, rotavirus, since this is there in news, so the viral disease, it also causes the diarrheal type of illness in the children, right? There is no such specific medicine that is available. There is only vaccine that will be preventing in nature and administered to the children at the early age. Last article in this is regarding Bathau religion, right? So the Batho religion of Bodo community in Assam gets the separate code in the upcoming census, right? So Batho religion jo hai or Bathoism jo hai, so that is a traditional faith. So like in the Hindu orthodox philosophical system, you have seen many such type of schools that talks about different elements that is constituting the entire Purush wala thing, right? So in that particular context, there is also the Kanad ne jo theory di thi, right? So that talked about the atomic theory and the Anu and other things. So that talks about the prominent features. So similar type of feature are available in the Bathu, which talks about the 5 principle or the Panchbhut. Now what are these principles? Ha, which is earth, Dvi, which is water, Or, which is fire, Bar, which is air, and the Okrang, which is sky. So this is also exactly similar to what we believe in the Hindu traditional system, that the body is constituting of all these particular things, right? So again, when they are talking about the natural element, there is a need to respect the nature and also preserving the equilibrium. So worshipping of the Almighty in the name of the Bathu Barai, right? And there are certain alternative names that are also there. Last in this is the Bathu Barai, how they are basically imagining that particular deity. So deity is imagined as the plant which is the Sijau plant. So Sijau plant ki puja karte hain, and that's how they are symbolizing their deity. So this is regarding the Bathu religion, right? So if there might be some pronunciation issue, so sorry for that, but yes, Bathu religion, this is regarding that. So last, when we have completed all this, I hope that whatever articles need to be explained in comparatively more detail, I have tried to give you that particular detail. Along with that, today there were mainly data and all that were there. So obviously some factual aspects were there, but note down this data. That is going to be very, very important for the examination perspective. After this, the questions that might be coming on the screen, try to solve them. Also go to the digital current affairs portal in order to access further feature in this particular regard. So I hope the things are clear to you, and again at the end I would like to wish you very happy Diwali, very prosperous Diwali. Enjoy the festival to the fullest. Thank you everyone. Have a great day.